I do not think there's any real validity to that. One of the sites I write for, Draft Express, last night reported that there was no validity to it, and that he would be happy playing Philadelphia. He was on First Take today, and he said as much. He said that it would be a blessing to play in Philadelphia. To me, that was another, likely, and I don't know this for certain, but that seems to me like that was posturing either, by another team or something to that effect. I do not think this is an issue. I mean, he's a guy who has spoken very highly of the Sixers in the past. He played high school basketball with Joel Embiid. He's good friends with Nerlens Noel. It would surprise me very much, and I have heard that was not true.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you that this is a lot of smokescreen now. What do you make of then all of the hoopla the last minute here around Kristaps Porzingis and the Sixers? Is this Sam Hinkie and team putting this out there to try to get a trade from Orlando? Do they legitimately like him? What do you make of all the Porzingis stuff in the last week and a half?
Well, I don't think those two are necessarily exclusive. I think I've talked about this before. I believe on the air, if not certainly on Twitter and elsewhere. That I know that Sam Hinkie was over there to Sevilla, Spain, a number of times. I've told at least 6 times to see Porzingis, and I was told that he was a fan. And we reported, again, Draft Express reported that last year at the time of the draft, Porzingis had his name in the draft, and Sam Hinkie and the Sixers were one of 2 teams to try to talk him out of withdrawing from the draft because they had that much interest in him last year. So I do believe that there is very legitimate interest. And the question becomes, do they have more interest in him than in Russell? And that's really what you're asking yourself. So I do think, at the very least, if they make it seem like they could take him, then you see what Orlando has to offer. So even if they have interest in Porzingis, I think they could float that out there, even just to see what, if Orlando would make them an offer they couldn't refuse. I don't think that necessarily means that they're going to take Porzingis. I think there could be a number of other people that they like as well. But I do think that there's interest in Porzingis. I just think that it also could have been floated out there.
Derek Bodner covers the Sixers for 97.3 ESPN.com, and as obviously the draft's getting closer, a lot of things out there. One thing not draft-related, Dario Saric announced today that he will not play for the Sixers. No surprise for you. I know you said about 5%, but does that mean that he will definitely be here next year?
Well, I mean, that's going to be the fascinating question. He said on draft night that he will come over after 2 years. Obviously playing in the NBA is something he wants to do. But as we talked about, I think when I made that 5% comment, there's a lot of financial incentive for him to stay over there because if you're over there for 3 years after being drafted, you're no longer bound by the rookie scale contract. So there's a lot of money that could be made, just by him waiting, another season on top of this upcoming one to come over. So it's really going to come down to whether or not, how much he's willing to sacrifice personally to come over and play in the NBA right now. I think him staying over, not only one more year, but a second year, I think is a very real possibility because there's such a huge financial incentive for him to do so. So that will be a really interesting decision that he will have to make next season. The buyout next year is manageable. I believe it's only about $800,000. So it's the buyout's not going to be the issue. It's going to be whether or not he wants to really pursue the possibility of getting out of the rookie scale.
All right, Derek, we're just 3 days away from the draft here. Russell, a lot of people, we talked about Porzingis. In this final week here, you're probably going to hear some crazy things. But in your opinion, most likely they stay at 3 and draft the best player available, or do you think that Sam Hinkie makes a trade?
That's a really good question. I think trading down to Orlando is a possibility. I do think they're very high on Porzingis. It depends how closely Sam Hinkie has, Russell, because now it's looking like there's a little certainty at the top of the draft with Towns going number 1 and Ford going number 2. So it comes down to how closely Sam Hinkie and the Sixers have Russell, Porzingis, and whoever would be third on that list to make a trade down worthwhile. If I had to guess, I would say they probably stay at number 3 and take Russell. That would be my guess. I think Russell is probably, at least in my mind, the best option for them. I think Porzingis might be right behind him. But if you put me to it, I think they're going to stay at 3 and take Russell.
We gotta have like an hour-long debate on Russell against Moutier. I am not a fan of Russell. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust or whatever. I just think Moutier is going to be a much better pro. and I think that he would be such a great fit for this team getting up and down the floor. But I know a lot of people like Russell because of the fact that they hear he's a good shooter, and that excites a lot of people because this team certainly does need that position. But what do you think also of the Knicks at number 4? Do you think that's a team that is also, we've heard them mentioned about trading, is that another team that Sam Hinkie could be talking to?
Yeah, well, they're where it gets really interesting because, Sam Hinkie could be talking to them. I think it's, they really want one of Towns, Okafor, and Russell. The problem is they really have nothing of value to give up unless you want to wait until 2018 for a first-round pick. So even if, they're really interested and they really want to move up to number 3, there's just not a whole lot that they can offer. But what they end up doing with that pick, whether it's trading it down, trading for a veteran, or kind of surprising people and not necessarily going the route that you would expect. I mean, there was a report today linking them to Frank Kaminsky at number 4, which would, be pretty shocking in that regard. They've been linked to Justice Winslow and Willie Cauley-Stein. So they can really go in just about any direction imaginable. I think they would be a great trade partner to trade down with. The problem is they just really don't have a whole lot to give up, and it might make, basically if the Sixers were willing to trade down, if they weren't in love with D'Angelo Russell or whoever they want at 3, and they're willing to risk losing that prospect, I think there's probably going to be somebody a little bit, has a little bit more to trade up for. And I think Orlando could be that piece.
Yeah, the one thing with the Knicks that could be interesting is, the Sixers, the fact that they have those picks next year, they have multiple assets in the first round. I was reading this about Saric. Part of that deal was they traded the 2017 first-round pick, correct, in that Saric deal to Orlando?
Who did, the Sixers?
The Sixers.
The Sixers got one back.
So they got Saric.
First-round pick and a first-round pick.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I did read today they traded, Elfrid Payton, and they got back Sarge and the Orlando first-round pick in 17?
No, it was the Sixers' own first. So the Sixers traded a first-round pick to Orlando as part of the Andrew Bynum trade. They essentially got that pick back in the Sarge trade.
Okay.
But also, I think I misunderstood you. When you're talking about trading with the Knicks, you're talking about trading to get their 4th pick, not to trade down. You're talking about maybe a pick or 2 for next year. I think that's possible. I think if New York trades out of that spot, though, I do think it will be for veterans. I think it'll be someone that can help them, compete this coming year. So I think they'll probably end up finding a better offer than what the Sixers could. Not necessarily on value, because the Sixers have, a lot of future value, but on what they're more looking for, which I think is immediate help.
All right, Derek Bodner has more, and the NBA draft coming up. And, of course, check it out at 97.3 ESPN.com. You're going to hear Hazonia's name a lot, Russell's name a lot, Porzingis' name a lot, and you're going to hear the one name you're not hearing a whole heck of a lot, though, is Moutier. He has not been connected a whole heck of a lot with the Sixers. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, to be honest, I think the only one that there's really been a whole lot of rumors towards has been Porzingis. I think Russell's connected almost more out of logic and what people expect than
team need
per se. Right. So I think really the only one that's been rumored a whole lot has been Porzingis, which might be telling. But you haven't heard anything about Moutier. You haven't heard anything about a guy like Mario Hazonia. Guys like that, even Justice Winslow, he came in for a workout, but you don't really see a whole lot of people speculating that he could be Hinkie's guy. So maybe those are the guys that we should be watching. Maybe there's a reason that Porzingis and Russell have been floated out there, but we'll see. 3 more days and we'll know for sure.
That's true. You can hear the draft on 97.3 ESPN. Our Sixers draft party on Thursday. We'll be giving away Sixers season tickets. And, of course, Derek Bodner will be live at the NBA draft. You did get your email from me, correct, Derek?
Correct.
Just making sure. All right, bud. We'll talk to you throughout the week. Thanks, man.
Yep. Take care.